American politics and foreign policy have been thrown into turmoil in the wake of the U.S. military strikes on Iran. And at the center of the debate is a simple yet explosive question. Did the United States actually face an imminent threat that justified these attacks, or were they an unconstitutional overreach of presidential power? Top Democratic lawmakers are now saying the answer is clear. There was no imminent threat, and the administration bypassed Congress in a way that directly challenges the Constitution and America's system of checks and balances. In late February 2026, the United States and Israel launched a coordinated military campaign against Iran, striking multiple sites across Tehran and beyond. The operation, dubbed Operation Epic Fury by U.S. military officials, was described by the White House as necessary to defend the country and its allies from future threats posed by Iranian missile capabilities and nuclear ambitions. Pentagon officials publicly stated that the purpose was to eliminate what they claimed were imminent threats to U.S. forces and strategic interests in the Middle East. But just days later, senior Democrats in Congress are pushing back hard against that narrative. Senator Tim Kaine of Virginia, a member of the Senate Foreign Relations and Armed Services Committees, was particularly outspoken. On national television, he argued that the evidence he reviewed did not demonstrate an imminent, clear, and credible threat to justify unilateral military action without congressional authorization. Kaine described the assault as a potentially illegal escalation and said that it should have been preceded by a vote in Congress if it was to be considered legitimate under the Constitution. Kaine's position is not isolated. Senator Mark Warner, vice chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, also voiced serious concerns, stressing that not only was there scant evidence of an immediate threat, but Congress was given very little visibility into the administration's intentions beforehand. Warner warned that the U.S. could be pulled into another open-ended war in the Middle East, a region where past conflicts have lasted decades, cost trillions of dollars, and resulted in massive human loss. It's important to understand why this matters. Under the U.S. Constitution, the power to declare war rests with Congress, not the president. While presidents have long interpreted their authority to act in defense of the nation, even in preemptive strikes, there is a long-standing expectation that if foreign forces present an imminent threat, meaning a clear, immediate danger, a president may respond without prior congressional approval. But according to Democrats now demanding hearings and votes, that threshold was not met in this case. Representative Ed Case, a Democrat from Hawaii, echoed this argument in a public statement, stressing that under current federal law and constitutional guidance, the president must seek legislative authorization unless there is a demonstrable, immediate threat to the homeland or U.S. forces. Case said lawmakers have seen no such proof, and that by bypassing Congress, the administration is essentially engaged in a war of choice with no clear strategy or legal basis. This sentiment was reiterated by other Democratic lawmakers who have accused the Trump administration of acting precipitously. They argue that if there were truly a time-sensitive danger, the president should have at least convened Congress, presented the evidence, and sought a vote on whether to proceed with military action. Instead, Democrats say lawmakers were surprised by the strikes, and public explanation from the White House has been vague at best. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer has pushed for full transparency, calling for both classified briefings and public testimony detailing the intelligence behind the decision. He said the American people and their representatives deserve clarity about why such a consequential action, one that could plunge the U.S. into a broad military conflict, was taken without consultation. Democrats also point to historical context, noting that past wars and military engagements have often been preceded by congressional authorization. For example, the Iraq War in 2003 was backed by a formal congressional resolution. Critics of the Iran strikes argue that setting aside that precedent undermines constitutional safeguards the Founding Fathers put in place to prevent rash or unilateral decisions that lead to war. It's worth noting that not every lawmaker agrees, even within the Democratic Party. A few, such as Representative Josh Gottheimer, have publicly supported the strikes, praising decisive action against what they fear is a hostile regime and arguing that requiring congressional clearance in every instance might limit the U.S. government's ability to respond to real and evolving threats when time is short. However, these voices are in the minority compared to those calling for a rigorous legislative debate and oversight. Meanwhile, some Republican lawmakers have also expressed rare bipartisan concerns. Representative Thomas Massie, for instance, has criticized the strike not on ideological grounds, but on constitutional and procedural ones, asserting there was no imminent threat and that the president should not have acted without consulting Congress. These unusual cross-party criticisms underscore how contentious the issue has become in the Capitol. On the other side of the aisle, Trump supporters maintain that the president acted appropriately to safeguard national security. They argue that intelligence, though not fully public, indicated credible threats that required immediate action, and that the executive branch must retain flexibility to act when danger is imminent. Some Republicans have argued that presenting sensitive intelligence in an open congressional session could compromise sources and methods, which complicates the debate over transparency versus security. But even if parts of the intelligence community privately supported the need for action, Democrats argue that by not presenting it publicly or seeking legislative authorization, the administration has eroded public trust and set a concerning precedent. They warn that future presidents, of either party, could cite this moment to justify unilateral military action in situations where Congress is intentionally sidelined. Many Americans are watching closely. Polls conducted after the strikes show a majority believe Congress should be consulted before further action is taken, reflecting widespread public unease about entering another prolonged conflict without clear justification or legal backing. There is also concern among lawmakers that by framing the Iran operation as necessary to prevent a vague future threat, the administration may be stretching the concept of imminent threat to fit a policy goal rather than responding to a specific and immediate danger. This debate over definitions, what exactly constitutes imminence, is now central to the constitutional dispute unfolding in Washington. Ultimately, the clash is not just about one military operation. It's about the balance of power between the presidency and Congress, the role of legal oversight in decisions of war and peace, and how far the executive branch can go without legislative sanction. Democrats are preparing war powers, resolutions, hearings, and votes to try to reassert congressional authority. Whether these measures succeed is another battle entirely, one that will unfold in the coming weeks as the conflict with Iran continues and as both parties grapple with the broader implications of this moment. As national leaders, policymakers, and voters absorb the implications, one thing is clear. The question of whether the United States truly faced an imminent threat, or whether the strikes were constitutional, has become a flashpoint in American political life, and its reverberations will be felt far beyond Tehran and Washington, D.C.